I want to remind you as well that if you sign up to Rebel News Plus, you'll get a bonus segment exclusive to subscribers every week. There won't be any ads on it like this one, so sign up for $8 a month. You guys know me, I'm a big crypto guy, but I'm actually not that great at it. So I've teamed up with Bitcoin 2022, the largest Bitcoin event in the world, April 6th to 9th in Miami Beach, Florida. All the freedom you could ever need. Now, day one is industry day for enterprising Bitcoiners like myself. I need the help really badly. Days 2 and 3 are conference days, including speakers like El Salvador President Nayib Bukele. He's got a big surprise he's promised for everybody, as well as CEOs like Michael Saylor, Elizabeth Stark, Jack Mallers, Adam Back, and hundreds more that you don't want to miss. Now, the last day is the world's first and largest Bitcoin music festival, Sound Money Fest. You don't want to miss it. Last year's conference sold out, so grab your tickets online. b.tc/conference is where you go. You can pay in Bitcoin and save, or use promo code REBELNEWS. That's promo code REBELNEWS for 10% off, and I will see you in Miami.
Warning. Censorship. Warning. Censorship.
Welcome to another episode of Andrew Says. I don't know what number this is, but Ben Bankas is here. He's back. How are you, young Benjamin?
You don't know what number episode this is?
60-something, I think.
Would it be 69?
For you, maybe we can delay it to be 69.
Can we just make this episode 69, and then if it's episode 66, you'll just do
all work
67
backwards?
and 68, and then you'll skip 69?
We'll see what we can do. I think it's possible. I'm not sure anybody else will laugh except
What's
for us.
going on, Rebel Media viewers?
Rebel News. It's been a while, Ben.
News.
You took a big trip to Texas to do some open mics, I guess. A couple podcasts here and there. I watched you on Kill Tony. How was it compared to Canada? I'm sure everybody's asking you that, but the restrictions are leaving now. We finally have a mask mandate ending date. So just tell everybody what it was like being free for a while everybody else wasn't.
It was amazing. I tell everybody that. They're like, how was Austin? I'm like, it was amazing. I mean, you didn't have to wear a mask. People are like, in Texas, people are like, Austin, it's such a liberal city. But compared to Canada, it's like, you know, the most conservative. Well, whatever we think is conservative now, which is, of course, just the idea that you don't want to wear a mask. That means you're conservative, even if you want to like give money to like children.
That's true.
Charities. You could give to charities and be like a philanthropist, and if you walk into your condo building without a mask on, people will just assume that you are an alt-right maniac.
Well, you are. Maybe you should move a bit closer here. So when you're down there,
Tell me to look at you. I don't want to look at you.
Well, you don't have to.
I'm going to look at you on the screen.
That's fine.
Easier.
That's fine. You look very cool, like a pilot almost. A pilot from like 1993 who got it never works out when I try to be the funny one, so I'll stop.
Sounds like you're coming on to me a bit, but that's okay. You look like a pilot.
A pilot.
You look like I feel like I'm watching Top Gun.
Which still hasn't come out, by the way, the new one.
There's a new Top Gun?
Yeah, he filmed it like a couple years ago.
What's it about? Just giving Ukrainians old planes, trying to train random farmers to fly fighter jets.
I think
fly MiGs.
I think he flies in one of those jets that can go hypersonic into space, like into the ionosphere or whatever it is. But Tom Cruise actually flew jets in this one.
Well, okay. Well, I'll finish telling you about Austin.
Okay.
Because we could get into all kinds of
Tom Cruise.
Ukrainian, Bulgarian, the war in Bulgaria. Is it in Bulgaria?
No.
Yeah, Austin's a great place to go. It's not as big as Toronto. I think it has its disadvantages. Like people, want you to just be like, it's the best thing ever. Like it does have its disadvantages. Toronto has a better transit system. Toronto has more options for food. More. I think Toronto's actually almost cheaper in some ways when you consider how many people are moving to Austin. But yeah, it's living in a place that doesn't have restrictions feels normal. And people are going to realize that once. I already see it on people's faces. They're walking around with their mask off and they're, wow, everybody's out and we're just walking along Bloor Street or we're walking along Yonge Street. Wow. And it's like, yeah, that's why you were insane and depressed for the last 2 years, because you didn't have that. It's important to live a normal life. It's important to not be worried. It's not that, wearing a mask is whatever. It's just the idea that you're constantly in fear of, if I don't put my mask on, somebody's going to say something. Because that's 90% of people who wear the mask are wearing it because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want somebody to be annoying towards them. They're not wearing it because they're like, oh my God, I care so much about my neighbor and I care about, I'm really worried about what could happen if I don't wear my. No, it's just because like I don't want to get in a confrontation at the LCBO, so I have it on.
David Menzies is no stranger to that. I don't know if you've been watching
LCBOs.
Oh, okay, because it's green screen. David Menzies loves excursions to the LCBO.
Leave that in. Don't cut that out.
Okay, that's fine. We'll leave the water bottle in. For what reason? I don't know.
No water bottles. Takes a bottle out.
Did you get a lot of those typical questions? Oh, what's it like being Canadian? Oh, do you love Justin Trudeau? What's the number one thing somebody from Texas is asking a Canadian?
Mostly people be like, "Where are you from?" And be like, "Canada." I'd be like, "Oh, sorry about that." They like felt bad for me.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's literally what it was. They're like, "Oh, ugh, yikes."
So I saw you on Kill Tony, one of my
Nobody
favorite
cares
podcasts.
about Canada. People are like, nobody's like, what's Canada like? They were just like, oh, you have legal weed? That's great. We also have that in certain states, but not here.
Something I was thinking about was, well, first of all, the guy you brought down there with you, what was his name? The guy you did, the special needs guy, I'll say, you did skits with, and he was
Jared Nathan?
Jared Nathan.
I didn't bring him down
No,
there.
you didn't?
Well, I mean, So when I did the park shows, if people don't know anything about me, which you probably don't, the reason I'm sitting here is because I did something illegal, and I did comedy shows in parks when we had our most intense lockdowns in 2020, and we had thousands of people come out to the park shows, whatever. So I put Jared I knew for a long time, Jared Nathan, and he did the park shows, and that's where he met Jason Rouse, who's a Canadian comic, longtime comic. He's been on Just for Laughs. He's done all the festivals. He's toured the world doing comedy. Now lives in Austin, hangs out with Tony Hinchcliffe and Brian Redband. And so Jared met him at those park shows, and Jason brought me actually last year down to Texas, and then this year he brought down Jared Nathan, and Jared killed it. Jared did a week. The first time it was going to be only for a week, but then he got on Kill Tony his first time, the same night I got on, actually, except he got to go on 12 times after that. Cause they were just like, this guy is, awesome. He's, his deal. He's got a stutter, and, some potential special needs, but he's also, just a hilarious dude. So he really impressed everybody down there, and he had a great time. And, I think he's still there. The first time he raised money on a GoFundMe, he raised like 10 grand.
And then Trudeau took it.
Yeah, Trudeau took his GoFundMe because he didn't wear a mask. No, he got the money. It was a legitimate GoFundMe. And so he stayed an extra week, and now he's staying there a month. I stayed there for 4 months. I mean, it's expensive. You know what I mean? I went with my girlfriend, and, she doesn't want to stay in, like a room in some guy's house. So it's not exactly cheap.
When you think about, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, when you think about doing work down there or potentially moving there in the future to do work, do you think it's better to go down to some place like that and be part of something and try to, whether it's building it up with a group of people, other comics, or doing something on your own, do you think it's better to go down there and do that? Or do you think it is almost better to try to stay around here and like be the guy? Because you have that potential, I think, if you're here to be the guy, whereas if you go back down to Texas permanently, then there's this whole other scene where you're like, you've got the Tony Hinchcliffes and the Rogans and all these people who are into the stratosphere almost now. Would you rather almost be here and be the guy?
Well, I think there's an opportunity to be the guy in both places. I think even both places at once. I mean, if you can freely move between the two places, there's no reason that, it's not that expensive of a flight. I mean, the PCR obviously, but I think they're going to be getting rid of that soon. And it's not that long of a flight to go down to Austin, or most of the states for that matter. So, I think there's the potential to be the guy in Austin too. Obviously, I'm not going to be Rogan, or I'm not going to be Tony Hinchcliffe. Those are established names, but you know, working with Tony or, you know, working with Rogan is a possibility there. And, you know, that can kind of establish you as like the guy on like a lower level than them. Like, obviously you're not the guy, but you're the guy that's also still doing other people's shows, because, you know, Tony and Rogan, they're probably not going to come out and do some show for $30, but if you're opening for Rogan, you might come and do that show. So there's still that potential to be the guy. And as far as Toronto, the problem here is that we don't have any tourism right now. And I think a lot of comedy really, you know, benefits from tourism. And the, you know, people coming to the city for a night, they go to a show, they have fun, and then they leave, right? Right now, we just basically, you can only pull locals to come to shows, or like people are driving. Like, I've had a couple of people drive like 2 hours actually to come to my shows, which is awesome. Thank you for doing that. But you see what I'm saying? Like, we don't have, like in New York City or in Austin, this constant flow of tourists being like, what do we do tonight? What do we do tonight? Going on Eventbrite type websites and finding comedy shows, and like people are packing them out there, and they're charging, like, you know, people who don't have huge followings but are good at stand-up are charging $30 for showcase shows where it's like 7 or 8 comics doing 10 minutes each, charging $30 US for that. And that's why if you want to come see me, you know, I'm charging $30 Canadian, which is only like $23 US when you think about it. So people will be like, it's $30. I know that like the dollar's crashing. My hair looks weird for a second. My girlfriend's going to watch this and be like, you didn't do your hair properly. You didn't shave your beard.
You wore your jacket insert.
You wore my jacket insert. No, this isn't a jacket insert. It's like it's supposed to look like it is. I don't know. It's from 2 years ago. I don't know what's in style anymore. I'm going to go to Dufferin Mall after this and
get kicked out.
Go to Champs without a mask on and learn about style again. No, but anyway, comedy in Toronto is hard to sell in the same way that you can do it in a town where people want to come to all the time. And now if Toronto becomes open more and we start having tourists again, because I remember when I started comedy in Toronto, a lot of my shows were doing stand-up for people who had hostels, and like, or there was just people from, you know, all over the place, from Australia, from Europe, you know, Spain, from Mexico, and then there's all the exchange students that would come here. I don't think that's happening right now, just with, you know, with everything that's happened in the last while. So to answer your question, I think you can become the guy in both places, but Toronto is not as easy to do, because in Toronto, like the equivalent of getting on Rogan is like, I guess like maybe like this, like, or like doing Ezra's show. Like, I don't know who has the biggest podcast in Canada. My friend Jack Denmo has a big podcast. He's got like 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He does videos kind of like Nelk Boys, where he, you know, goes up to girls and, I don't know, says something funny and they do something and or whatever. You know, we don't have a Rogan. We don't have anybody. And if you want to get on CBC, you obviously have to adhere to some sort of rules, which, you know, I kind of thought about it and I was like, why, the CBC knows I exist. You know, they know that I'm funny. They know I have a following. I had to gain it back because Instagram literally deleted it. But they could, you know, they could be like, hey, do you want to do something? But maybe you have to, you know, not say this or not say that, or, you know, and maybe I could have that decision. Do I want to work with them or do I not? But I don't think it doesn't work like that. You literally have to virtue signal your way into it. It's not like you can be talented enough that they'd be like, hey, I know you said some stuff, you know, like if it was Norm or something, you know, like Canada missed out on a lot of, missed out on a lot of talent because they just went, we can't have him on. He's too much. And then they just go to the States and become famous. So,
yeah, there really isn't a thing here. There really isn't like a giant podcast here. And I would hope to...
Definitely not this one.
Oh, you're just going to make me swear on my own show. I usually reserve my cursing for
Your
other
hair
shows.
looks incredible, though.
Thank you. My girlfriend told me I look like a 3D animation the way my hair is right now.
You look like a hockey coach in the GTHL or something.
Just yelling at kids.
Yeah.
Asking for vaccine passports. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is Trudeau, obviously in the news a lot the last, like, let's say 3-4 months for his trucker convoy stuff. He'll never get out of style for blackface. And then, of course, the previous election behind that. And now we're still behind in the Western world in terms of all lockdowns. Hawaii is the only other one, and they're lifting everything before us in terms of restrictions. How much of your content do you want to continue to be political, or do you just does it matter? Do you want to just go back to being a comedian like you were before all this happened? Or do you see like your Trudeau stuff? I think the Doug Ford one is the best stuff you do politically of all of them. Do you want to keep doing that forever? Because that would be a thing that you would think that one of these shows would want you to do for them.
It's a good question. Hawaii. What about Hawaii?
They just lifted their mask mandate before us.
Oh, I see.
And they were the last state to do so.
The last state. Okay,
Yeah.
I see. Okay. What was the last part of the question again?
This would, like, doing all the political comedy would be a way to get on one of these shows.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I grew up with political comedy. I grew up watching, this is going to sound whatever, but I grew up watching Colbert Report. I grew up watching The Daily Show. When I was a kid, it was on after South Park, I think, or like before South Park or something like that. It was on Comedy Central. It was kind of uncensored compared to now. And it was basically making fun of the government's lies at the time about Iraq and the Iraq War and like all kinds of stuff that was going on. Completely, what we have now is like this similar thing, but like on the other end of the spectrum, right? So, and I was making political jokes like before the pandemic. I was doing bits about the Wet'suwet'en protesters and how it was all like white people doing it, and then there was also like teachers protesting at the same time, and it was like, are the teachers anyway? So I was doing bits about anything that I think that is people are thinking and talking about, I think is worth joking about. Now, I think specifically maybe the question would be like, are you going to continue doing COVID bits or like stuff about the pandemic? Eventually, no. Like as it gets older, I mean, I'm still doing jokes about Kobe's death. So I mean, but I'm trying to get rid of like I've been working. Like it takes a long time to work on stand-up jokes. It takes a year. It takes 2 years till it's like so good that you're like, this now is perfect to be seen by like the masses on Instagram, right? And sometimes I'll take a chance and I'll just be like, let's just post this version of it. I had a video where I said that I had a joke where I was like, especially after like what happened with Joe Rogan, I was like, well, I guess white people still can't say the N-word, and then the joke was, well, even though we, kind of created it or whatever. And then I was like, it's kind of cultural appropriation, whatever. It's a joke. And it worked really well. And there was like a guy in the crowd who was like, didn't know what to do, and he was he was like a black dude, and and then he just loved it, and I made fun of him. Anyway, the video got like 500,000 views on Instagram. So I think it's like there is, whatever's popular. Like I think it got those views because of the Rogan thing, but I already had that joke. I don't know if that makes me look bad or not, but I already had that joke. But at the time, it's just like that. The timing of that's good, right? So I think it's less about how political you are and more just the timing of stuff now. And I think it's unfortunate in some ways because I feel like a lot of comics are catching on to that, and a lot of comics are becoming kind of critics of the times. But I think that that's indicative of the times. We need people to make fun of shit because it's so crazy that if we don't, then people will lose their minds. If you just go on stage and you just totally pretend like the last 2 years didn't happen, the audience picks up on that. Or if you have like an opinion of the last 2 years that's very all about being safe and, we were making sure to be safe and it's not really funny and it's mostly just about how you were safe, the audience will hate it. So Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was there a difference in what offended audiences down there as opposed to here, or vice versa? Were you able to be less safe down there?
It's funny. Like, I don't know. People there get. I had one guy get triggered. He was like, I don't know, but he had like tattoos on his face. So I don't know if he was the best judge of what the general populace. He was upset because I have a joke about Kobe and whatever, and he was like, "Don't you ever, like, what happened to Kobe and his daughter? Like, you should never make fun of it." And I was like, whatever. But people are pretty open to laughing at things, and I think the woke people in Austin who think they're woke aren't woke. Like, they'll laugh at things that are bad and be like, but they'll be like, "Oh, that's horrible." Like, you know, obviously I wouldn't say that at work or whatever, but I can laugh at it at a comedy show. Whereas here, people are like, "I can't say it at work, so I won't be laughing at it at a show, and I won't be enjoying myself, and I won't see through the, you know, no." And then there's people that won't. Like, I was just in Oshawa, and people had an amazing time. I had a few messages. People are like, thank you so much. You know, I've been to so many shows that are so politically correct recently. I thought I lost faith in comedy. I was so happy that you weren't politically correct. And, you know, so people want it. There's an appetite for it. It's just becoming like, you know, it's like gasoline. It's like, that's why I have to make it expensive, more expensive to come see me than to see
Because of Putin.
somebody else because of Putin. That's why my shows are more expensive.
What's the comedic take on Russia and Ukraine now? What are you working on for that? Did you put it? Have there been any Putin voiceovers?
Why don't you should really do this. This looks better.
What do you want me to do here? This and then this, up and
You
under.
pull it down, and then
All right, up and under now, like a regular microphone.
at first the funniest thing to say I think was that it's fake. That was the funniest thing you could say for like a week. It was like, this is fake. It was the same with COVID. That was like the funniest thing you could say for like a few weeks at the beginning. Just in general conversation or on stage. Obviously, it's bad. I think the comedic take is kind of, like I said with COVID, it's like you have to like ingrain it in the bit. It's like, because it's part of what's happening right now, you kind of have to just mention it within whatever else is happening. But I've seen a lot of comics go on stage going like, Russia's at war. Oh, the audiences, you know, you got to have something like, the punchline has to be that. Like, I made fun of, there was like this big fat like Ukrainian guy in the audience, and I was like, this guy looks like the whole Ukrainian army right now. And like, it was so funny because he was sitting at the front, and if you were behind him, you could just see the most Ukrainian looking back and like head. So everybody laughed. It's not really making fun of the war. It's just adding it in.
Do you see as much? This is my take on it.
People have made the Ukrainian bride joke a million times. Like, that's hack. Like, well, there's going to be a lot of Ukrainian mail order brides. Cheap.
Do you see as much virtue signaling about it as I see? About like supporting Ukraine?
In what sense?
That this is the greatest travesty in the world and Ukraine's completely innocent?
Well, I mean, like, this is like, no country's innocent, but like the people are innocent.
Well, of course, yeah, but
The people like who are getting like injured, I think, are innocent, or the people who are having to flee are innocent. Yeah, but there's a lot of, I mean, the virtue signaling, it's just the same with BLM. Like, people don't even, they'll put a black square up and you'll be like, you know that like 8 white dudes got like murdered today by BLM people in like some random city riot, and they'll be like, yeah, well, I'm gonna still keep the BLM square up. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter. People are doing what they're told. This is just what they're told to care about it. They care about it. Now, there's a lot of Ukrainians in Canada, and there's a lot of Russians, and I'm sure a lot of them watch Rebel, and you know, they know for a fact that this is horrific, and you know, it's horrific for Ukrainians and Russians who are in the diaspora on both sides, because they want to watch. Russians want to watch Russian TV if they live in, in Steeles and Bathurst or whatever. And Grandma Babushka wants to watch her regular Russian TV, and now it's banned, right? So that's not great. Is she a threat? Like, is she gonna watch an RT video and be like, no? So, like, and then on the other side, like the Ukrainians, like now it's like they're worried about their family members, probably families moving here. There's all this. I think one of the funny takes that I've done on it is that we kind of realize that Canada is a racist country because nobody on either side has said, like, let's not take in these Ukrainians. You know what I mean? Like, whenever they're like, oh, there's a war in Yemen, like, let's take in Yemeni. And then, like, some people on one side will be like, well, some of those guys, they're kind of battle hardened and, they know how to use guns and they might be terrorists. And the Ukrainian refugees, everybody, like, people on both sides are like, yeah, that's great.
More pierogies.
So I think that's a funny take that you can have.
That you can have if you're allowed to. I think that a lot of this stuff isn't allowed right now, and that's why it's become another thing where I think that you're not allowed to have a conversation about it. I mean, we are right here.
I think we're doing it.
And we're doing it, but you're not going to find it anywhere else in Canada, I think. You can't name me one other
Not on
outlet.
the news. Not on the news. It's like, not on regular TV. You can't tune in and have they'll be like, we have a comedian in what do you think of Ukraine? And I'm just like, well, it's fake. No, they can't have that. But obviously I'm joking about that. But even if I said that, they'd be so like, oh my God, like alarm bells. It's like, I'm joking. Obviously it's not fake. It's funny to think that it's fake. And if anything, that's almost a left-wing joke because I'm like making fun of the people who said that the pandemic was fake. You know what I mean? So I think the Ukraine thing is bringing both sides. I think it's lessening the polarization, and whether that's done intentionally or not, and you can argue all kinds of conspiracies. But at the end of I think a war with anybody right now, especially a white on white war, which I think a lot of young people are seeing for the first time. They haven't seen a white on white war. They've seen, us going into Iraq, us going into Afghanistan, going into all these countries of people of different races and just being like, blah, blah, blah. Now you have just white people who look almost identical. I know some Ukrainians, we look nothing like us. They look almost identical and they're just blowing each other up. So I think that it kind of makes everybody who is like COVID crazy on one side and on the other side, they're like, let's get rid of, let's go back to normal. I think they're kind of coming slowly. We're going to come back to the two sides not being as polarized. I know in the States there's a push for why, some far right people are like, we shouldn't give them any money and we shouldn't. And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm not a politician. I just know how it's affecting me. If I was getting blown up right now, and maybe that's why COVID gave everybody this opportunity to really have an opinion. Everybody's like, you're not a doctor. You're not. Yeah, but I'm being affected by it personally. You wouldn't say that to somebody in the Ukraine who's getting bombs dropped on them, and you're like, well, you're not a general, so you don't really know what's, you know what I mean? Like, and like, I know there will be people out there being like, hopefully they do. Hopefully that comedian makes comparison to bombs being dropped to having to be in COVID lockdown for 2 years. Yeah, well, it was pretty bad. People did take their own lives. So, just because war is worse than being in lockdown for the majority of 2 years and losing all your money and your business doesn't mean that wasn't also bad. And luckily, people in Ukraine didn't even really do that. I don't even think did they even have a lockdown? Nobody wears a mask there. They have like one of the lowest vaccination rates in all of Europe.
What are the odds we get a new sketch comedy show or something in Canada? I think you should start that.
Well, I'm working on some stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm working on putting out a special. I'm working on putting out some more content, some more filmed content. But the thing is, it's tough if it's like, okay, you make a bunch of stuff on your iPhone or you have a little bit more quality. I feel like if you have a little bit more quality when people come to see you, there's a little bit more, it's not just, I just watch this guy make videos on his iPhone every day, which is great. And you can get a bajillion followers from that. I don't know. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should just be like Gary V style. But, some days I wake up, I'm like, I don't want to force funny all, you know, and at the same time, I'm always working on something, whether it's my podcast, which you can listen to for free on all platforms, the Ben Bankas podcast, or you can find at benbankas.com, whether it's my Patreon bonus episodes, which I give to people so that I can eat food, so you can pay me $5 a month, which is at patreon.com/Ben Bankas, which you can go sign up right now. Or I'm working on my show, my physical shows, live shows, or I'm working on doing like a silly dub video. I like doing videos where my face isn't in it. Like, I really wish I had a cartoonist friend who could draw me. I'd love to do a cartoon because it's so fun to do little silly voices over images and videos versus, you know, having to actually act, and then you need lights and stuff. You need all this stuff. Which is great. You know, I have some good sketches out there.
I think I would watch a political cartoon of all the world leaders. That'd be interesting, I think. Well, the Ryan Long method seems to be both a new and workable method where like you have this online following from all these sketches, and then you turn that into, I'm pretty sure he was doing stand-up before his sketches got big, but that's turned into, you know, him being this huge name, and his special just came out, and it seems like he can get a good tour going. So I think there's merit in putting out all these sketches or an iPhone video or whatever, or getting together with other people and gaining a following that way. Having said that, going back to my question about whether it's better to be here or to be down there, I think there's a real opportunity here, and I know I'm fathering you here a little bit, to do that sort of stuff, because I don't think there's any other people doing anything like that here. There's no sketch comedy show that anybody watches. There's no Kids in the Hall. Nobody watches This Hour is 22 Minutes. I don't even know what the last show. There was like some CBC all women sketch comedy show the last time. I think I talked about that like 2 years ago. Do you remember what that was called?
No, but the thing is, I don't think anybody watches anything here. You know,
It's another
I think
problem.
people just watch, they go home, they scroll Instagram until they're cross-eyed, or they watch Netflix, some horrible show that they get into because they hate their lives, or they watch this, or they watch Rebel, and they just, you know, they get angry and they go, why is everything so bad? Or and then they go watch CBC after, and they go, I hate this, I hate everything. Not a lot of, you know, not like when I grew up and I watched Comedy Now, and it was like, and it was like comics doing stand-up for, you know, that were Canadians. They used to get some money for it. Like, I know it wasn't a lot. It was probably like $2,000 or $5,000 to do that special. But that's how Russell Peters, that special went viral on YouTube for him. So without that, like if he had been doing it now, he would have had to make now YouTube is so far along that it's not like when Russell Peters went viral on YouTube. It was just, YouTube was new. It was a new thing to do, to go viral. Now people are going viral every 5 seconds with, you know, I just listened to Mr. Beast on Joe Rogan and all the guy does, everything's like, we're giving away 1,000 puppies to like 100 people in like 10 seconds. You know, it's like, what am I supposed to compete with that? Like, all I'm doing is giving social commentary on what's going on. I'm not, you know, or making fun of my own life or talking about funny things. You know, I'm not anyway, there is opportunity here for sure. I am going to be starting more of that. But even Ryan's stuff is higher quality. Like, he films it, edits it every week. There's a sketch. You know, he's not just doing like the, you know, yeah, I'm this guy, now I'm this guy, and then I'm this guy.
You can't find a cameraman?
No, I can.
Exactly.
And I have a cameraman, but we're working on the podcast first. So we've done my new producer. Shout out to my new producer, Mike. And he, you know, produces the podcast. It looks amazing. And we're doing this comedy special. He's starting to film my stand-up, and now we're going to start writing sketches and doing those sketches. But this, you know, you want to pick a week and film like 2 or 3, I think, just to get ahead of yourself. And then the next week you only have to film 1. And then you can kind of work at that pace. I think that's a good way to really get the ball rolling. And I think I'm in a good position to really move towards that. I know you call it the Ryan Long model. It's, I think that it's really a lot of comics have, Andrew Schultz came out with it for, the idea of just putting out content and then, gaining your following to the point where then people want to watch your stand-up. And that's really how you have to do it now. It's the modern comedy way. I know there's a lot of comics in Canada that are like, well, if I can just get with Yuck Yucks and then if I can just get, and it's like, yeah, but you need to, Yuck Yucks will sell out for you on their brand, right? Like they'll be like, here's the sold out show. You have to go kill now. And that's what can make you so good at and so strong at stand up in Canada is that people go to stand up, don't care who it is. People do that in the States too, but not like they have the option to be like, or we could go see Rogan, or we could go see, Jerry Seinfeld's in town, or Tim Dillon, or whatever. Like we have those acts come through town once in a while. We haven't, but that's not, they don't live here, right? So yes, it's important to get it with Yuck Yucks and become a headliner, and that's how you get really good at stand-up, but you also have to have that online. You want to get to the point where half the people at Yuck Yucks got sold out right away because they're your fans, or the whole thing's getting sold out because it's your fans. If you can do that, the only comics that have been able to do that in Canada, sell out Yucks consistently for people coming to see specifically them, is really Russell Peters. Like he's like the last person to be able to sell out Yuck Yucks across the country based on when he had those videos going viral and people are like, how do we see this guy? Right. So it's part of the game. It's nuanced, and you have to become like a phenomenon. I think the Teresa Tam videos kind of became a phenomenon a bit, and the Doug Ford videos, like you said. And they can always come back. But if really those videos are meant to make them like screw off and like let us live our lives, they should watch those videos and be embarrassed and be like, this is funny. What are we doing? They shouldn't be like, this is horrible. How can this guy make fun of us? It should be like, no, I look like a dork. This is stupid. Why are we, we're obviously upsetting people. And if they stop bothering us, then I don't think, we can move on to make fun of whoever is pissing us off that day.
2 free months, and you won't get ads. You won't get ads, but you will get the extra segment, like our ads from our friends at the Bitcoin 2022 conference, which I know Ben's a big Bitcoin guy, whether he says it right now or not. And of course, our Elevate.Farm.
Yeah, I lost all my money on Bitcoin.
Our Elevate.Farm sponsor as well. You won't have to see any ads, and you'll get bonus content, rebelnewsplus.com. Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. To get the full version of the show with bonus segments, go to rebelnewsplus.com and sign up now.